Hey YouTube, this is NoulTrimYGO here. Today we're going to take a look at one of the more fun anti-meta decks. Maybe not for the other opponent, it's fun, but when you're doing it, it's kind of fun. It's called Empty Jar, and basically, the objective of the deck is to make it so that your opponent runs out of cards to draw, and you win. And you do it by using and abusing Morphing Jar's effect, so you keep discarding cards and drawing cards and discarding and drawing, etc., etc. So you win by that. And the main cards you use are AD Changer, like you see in my hand, and its effect reads that while it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to change the battle position of a monster you control, not face up. So while you have set Morphing Jar, you could just banish AD Changer from the graveyard, and it looks like this guy's running Gishki, but you could just banish AD Changer, flip Morphing Jar back face up, and its effect activates. And you can still chain with quick play spell cards from your hand, even if they're in your hand and you're about to discard them. And the good thing about that is you would think effect failure would stop this deck, but it doesn't, because you flip Morphing Jar and you ask for a response. They chain effect failure, and then you chain Book of Moon. Book of Moon resolves first, because remember, chains resolve backwards, and it's flipped face down. Then Effect Failure resolves, but it has no target because Effect Failure does say one face up monster your opponent controls. Then Morphing Jar's effect resolves because it was still flipped up. Even though it was flipped back down, it was still flipped up, and so its effect still activates. And I was lucky there that he didn't attack my Morphing Jar. That would have changed the game a bit. But then, basically, this is where I get the loop. So I flip Morphing Jar. He says, okay, discard all the cards. And now I have all 3 AD Changers in the graveyard, which is good. Draw 5 cards. And you see I have these draw cards like Dark World Dealings, and later you'll see I have Hand Destruction and One Day of Peace. I'm not using them just because if I use them, if you look at the number of cards in our decks right now, I'll gradually get less and less cards in my deck, and it'll be harder for me to win. That's the bad thing about this deck, because sometimes you can end in a tie if the loop gets messed up or something, but usually the card that you can use to get you ahead of your opponent to have less cards in their deck than you do, things like Needleworm, or when you're doing the loop and you're about to lose or tie, just activate Card Destruction while they have all the cards in their hand. So I also have Book of Tayu, which is basically like another AD Changer. And a lot of people seem to forget that, oh, and Magical has Stone of Excavation, I should tell you too. It's basically discard 2 cards and you get a spell card from your graveyard to your hand, which is really good. But a lot of people forget that you can set spell cards, normal spell cards, and activate them the turn they were set. You can't do that with traps or quick play spell cards, but with normal spell cards you can. And so let's say I want to save the Book of Tayu or One Day Peace or whatever. I could just set it, then flip Morphing Jar, and so it would stay on the field, and so I don't have to discard it. So that's where it can be advantageous. I wait for him to respond, see if he has Valor. I still chain Book of Eclipse, so I can get it face down again. Discard all the cards in the graveyard, and the duel is about to be finished here. There's Card Destruction, and I could use it, but I don't need to use it, because I have an even number of cards in my deck divided by 5. So basically, here's what gets interesting, because okay, so that sets back down. We both draw 5 cards, and then what'll happen is I'll draw 5 cards, and I'll have 5 cards left in my deck. But remember, the rule is basically, if you're still kind of confused about this rule, if you have no cards in your deck, whenever you're supposed to draw a card but you don't have any cards in your deck, you lose. So right now, I run out of cards in my deck, but the thing is, I only have to draw 5, and I do draw 5, and so I don't lose. But he has to draw 5, and he only has 3 cards in his deck, and so I win. That's why I didn't need to use Card Destruction. But yeah, that's how this deck works. If you want to make it, you just need Morphing Jar, Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse, Book of Tayu, and AD Changer. And a bunch of draw cards, Magical Stone Excavation. Yeah. That's basically it. Thank you guys for watching. See ya.